All right, here is our August update. It's not quite August yet. It is July 29th, but close enough. It has been very hot this July, as usual. It's surprisingly, while the rest of the world is having a crazy heat wave, we've got El Nino, so it's actually kind of a milder July, I suppose, than normal, but mild here in the Central Valley of California means 105 degrees, sometimes going up to 110 degrees, and every now and then we've got days that are in the 90s. Today's high is 100 on the dot up here, which is not bad, but it does cause some serious changes to my garden. So this is the first kind of stress test. Before I head out there into the burning sun, I'll point out a couple things. So the tarweed is a native. I did not plant it. I just let it pop up in the area where we had carved out the spot for sort of this. It'll be filled with, there'll be weed barrier and then rock in there next year if I'm not too lazy. So this year I just kind of let anything that was native just pop up in there, and I've never seen tarweed this size. I think it must get eaten out there in places where there's where it's not enclosed. It also did get some supplemental water, some runoff from the irrigation system, I would expect. So yeah, just like the happiest tarweed I've ever seen. Smells great. Some people hate the smell. I love it. It's kind of man, I don't know how to explain it. It's sweet and I don't know, a little sour maybe, a little like deep. It's got a deep smell. Anyway, whatever that means. Another fascinating discovery I've made is that well, first off, over the past few weeks I've been away on the weekend. I haven't had time to get in here, and this rando grass, which I had been pulling all season, appears to spread under the mulch with like a rhizome. It just kind of exploded here, so it got away from me and blew up. But some of it actually went to flower, I guess you call it. And so I was able to identify it, and it actually is a native sedge. So that doesn't mean I'm going to let it stay, but I might not pull. I don't know, I'm just not quite as mad about it, I guess, is the I don't know what I guess I'll treat it like the turkey mullein, but a little risky here because unlike the turkey mullein, like you can leave one turkey mullein. Okay, so yeah, turkey mullein, because I say it a lot and don't always explain it, is a native weed, I guess you would call it. I don't think anybody would plant turkey mullein. It just pops up, and it's got these lovely little like fuzzy leaves, and this beautiful like sage, like really pale sage color, and these like flower heads just full of seed, and the native quails and turkeys just absolutely love it. It's not at risk of going crazy, going out of control. It spreads by seed, so for the most part you get in there, you pull out the plants that you don't want to grow for the season, leave the ones you do, and they stay where they are. That's not the case with this native sedge. It sends these little rhizomes in every direction and just sprouts like crazy. I might have to completely remove it, which at this point seems like a tall order and possibly an impossible one. So yeah, those are the weeds in my garden, which I know normal people are like, I pull weeds. I identify weeds and figure out what's going on with them. All right, so usual order. Let's start over here. Here's our hummingbird sages. They are being crowded out a little bit by weeds. I really need to get in here and do some clearing. We had a lot of trouble with water and heat. And the alternating between those two things. And that's the theme right now throughout the whole garden. How do I get the right amount of water in? Because I have both drought stress and then I alternately have too much water, right? So I'm no longer, right now I'm not doing overnight watering anymore, even though that worked for me just fine up at the top of the hill. I think down here we have soil that's dense and holds a lot of water, and water is also running down this hill, and then these areas get waterlogged, and then these plants completely can't handle it. And at one point I thought I was going to lose all of these hummingbird sages to overwatering, but I ended up only losing this one, which then I was shocked to discover it does still have one pup here that's still alive, and maybe it'll make it. Oh wait, hold on. Okay, never mind. Hummingbird sage is incredibly resilient. This thing, even though it looks like it's utter toast, I think if it makes it through the next couple weeks, it's gonna bounce back, which is crazy. I just need to weed. So here's that native sedge. Here are those rhizomes I was talking about. This one's actually not that egregious. Some of them you pull out and you can just kind of track if you pull it out slow enough. You can see the little rhizomes going in every direction. And sometimes you'll even see another little plant popping up on one of the rhizomes. They're really fascinating. Then we have the snowberries. So these are the high elevation plants that shouldn't be here. It's much too hot here for these guys. But shockingly, my snowberry has done fine. It's shown absolutely no signs of heat stress or drought stress. It seems to be doing great. I think it's in the right spot in the garden. The problem is, as always, herbivory. And there are some young fawns that are finding their way into this area, and the young fawns are dipping their little heads in here and eating the tops of the snowberry. So snowberry is going to need to have a larger enclosure, but I'm so happy that it's survived. This is the manzanita, the ground cover manzanita, the radiant manzanita, which is doing fine, except that it does get eaten when it exceeds the extent of this enclosure. I don't know how that's gonna work. It's a ground cover manzanita. I can't enclose an entire area, so I eventually, okay. And here is our coffee berry, which also just seeing this now, has also been eaten. What joy, what joy. Also over here, this is shocking. This was the supposedly indestructible, Twin Peaks coyote brush. This was the supposedly indestructible coyote brush, which Las Politas Nursery described as disgusting. And I was like, that's great. You can be disgusting. I like disgusting. If disgusting means that it will live here in the center of the sun and that nobody will eat it, then excellent, let's do that. Okay, not so much, not a survivor. So that's kind of a bummer. Crazy that the snowberry lived and the disgusting indestructible monster died. Ceanothus, this is our ceanothus Ray Hartman, which was eaten earlier in the season, caged it up. It's doing a lot better now. It has leafed back out, so its whole photosynthesis cycle has resumed. The big question on this one is there enough soil here for it to survive? The soil here is super clay. This is the California buckeye, which I don't know if it's dormant, because they do go summer dormant, or if it's dead. I guess we'll find out next season. Maybe there's a way that you can tell if the stem is, brittle. It's probably dead. I don't know. This was a California fuchsia of some kind that we popped in really late in the season. It grows a little bit and then it gets eaten, and then it grows a little bit more and then it gets eaten, and I'm tired of caging things, so That's what it is. Look at how lovely the tarweed is. Nobody eats the tarweed. We love tarweed. Look how cute you are. This is the toyon, which is doing fine. It's not growing maybe as fast as I thought it would, but it's getting there, slowly but surely. I mean, if it makes it in this soil, which is almost completely clay, then that's a win. This is of course the Artemisia tridentata, the sagebrush, the California sagebrush. Love these guys. It's in bloom. These are its blooms. They are not very showy. They're just little, like, teeny tiny little balls of whatever. I don't even know how you find the petals and like the individual components of the flower in there, but they smell great, and they look great. Here is our woolly sunflower, which we bought late in the season on a whim, just to see. And yeah, it's doing good. I can see why it's called woolly. The early season leaves weren't quite like this. These ones are super fuzzy, very well adapted for drought. That's a drought adaptation. And yeah, so pretty cool. This one seems to be blooming. What a peculiar bloom. Huh. Sedges over here. Those are our the sedges that I planted. This one, look at the size of this tarweed. Amazing. And then there's another sedge there. And then this, of course, is our blue elderberry, which had the tops eaten off of it early in the season, kind of stunted its growth, caged it up, and now it has some new shoots kind of peeking off of there, but hasn't achieved sort of the height. It's not quite back to where it was headed. Now these are the Gracias sages, which were so beautiful earlier in the season. This one is still an absolute beast. Look at the size of it. It's probably 5 feet around. But this one didn't make it. And again, I'm not quite sure if it was too much water or not enough water or alternating between the two or what. This one's not doing great either. This one's somewhere in the middle, but this one, man, wow, continues to just absolutely dominate. Just a huge, incredible show for a first-year plant. I mean, this thing's not even a year in the ground, and it's 5 feet around from a 1-gallon pot. This was the Dara's Choice sage, which I was holding out hope for, you know, maybe it would resprout kind of like the hummingbird sage, but I just don't think she behaves that way, so I don't think it's gonna make it. This was one that I think in last month's update was already gone. I think it had been overwatered. It just got the roots completely drowned and it just didn't make it. This poppy, shockingly, completely went to seed, so we should be inundated with poppy seed in this vicinity. So next year we'll see how many we get. Still kicking. Look at, we still got little blooms, random little blooms on the poppy, which is wild. Also, this is the deer grass. This is what they do. Look how tall. Still going. It's as tall as me. It's probably, let's see, let me stand right next to it. It's almost exactly the same height as me. It's about 5'6". Amazing. Deer grass. Love it. So green. When you've got nothing else green in your garden, you can count on deer grass. And here's an interesting guy. I didn't know that we had this here. Just seemed to have popped up in the past day. That looks like a Rudbeckia of some kind. Some sort of a black-eyed Susan. Must have come out of a seed packet. Penstemon pseudospectabilis. Now going to seed. Look at these big old seed pods. Great big guys. Big fat seed pods. And one up there still has some blooms. Same genus, same everything. So we still have some blooms on this guy, which is great. Hummingbirds have been obsessed with these. Have also been obsessed with the sages. This is our ceanothus skylark, which was a teeny tiny little guy when we put it in. And look at it now. It looks great. It has had there's been some nibbling here, which is concerning because one major nibble could set this guy back massively. So here is the moment when we decide, do we cage it or not? I don't know. I'm tempted to not and just see how it goes. Ceanothus are highly adapted to herbivores, right? So they co-evolved with the deer in this area, and I have seen them eaten to the ground and they still come back. That's just not the kind of ceanothus you want in your garden. So we'll see. Here's another volunteer blue oak that has popped up in here. And fascinating how just having the mulch and the protected area where there's just a reduction in the amount of grazing by deer has triggered this explosion of baby oaks. Look at this one. That's the one we caged early in the season, and I put punched a hole in the drip line and started watering it just to see what would happen. And look at what happened. Wow. Do I want an oak tree right here? Not entirely, but you know what? Hey, it's a California blue oak, and if you can make those grow, I can move these plants, or I can replant them. But a blue oak, those are hard to come by. These are the 3 California buckwheats that we planted. The Eriogonum fasciculatum. Look at how lovely, finally in bloom. And this is why I wanted to get this video now instead of next weekend, because by next weekend, these guys are probably going to be changing color. They'll go this lovely rust color. And these will all be these sort of rust colored seed heads. And they just look great. This one, possibly experiencing some drought stress, which is new. Yeah, maybe we'll do a little bit more watering. So I've just been going with like 4-hour watering sessions at night after the sun goes down. This one looks amazing. This one's grown out of its area here. Not as much grazing as I was worried about. So I might take one of them out of the cage and see what happens. All right, up here we have the Penstemon GMR White, which has been way more resilient than it has any right to be. This guy was planted late in the season. I think it was at the beginning of July, maybe mid-June. And really these should go in late November. And has done really well. No blooms open right now, but has continued to bloom even after we brought it and put it in the ground. Okay, need to keep stopping because my allergies are losing it. Look at the shoots on this dwarf white sage. This is great. There's like a dozen shoots. There's this giant flower stalk just going up and up and up, probably over 6 feet now. Amazing. I love it. We'll see how it does next year. It is getting some assistance, if you will, from whoever lives right there, who's chucking. This seems to be a theme with my white sages. Ground squirrels just take up residence at the ground, at the base, and start piling dirt on them. Thank you very much, little guys, for that. Appreciate you. This is Eleanor, an Eleanor monkey flower, and it's lovely. Look at it. Look at how cute those flowers are. And I cannot believe it's continued to bloom. Monkey flowers, in my experience, bloom in the spring in this area, and then they, as soon as there's not quite enough water for them, they start to fade. Now, the fact that this monkey flower is doing so well here may give us a clue. Possibly the reason the sages are struggling is because there's too much water. Okay, well, we'll take that into consideration. We have this blue guy here. I can't remember the name. It's some sort of a phlox that came out of a seed packet. Really pretty. It's continued to do pretty well. Seems to be not delicious enough to be consumed, which is how you survive in this area. Another lovely deer grass. And here's the celestial blue sage, which has continued to bloom throughout July. Really lovely, beautiful flowers. The hummingbirds are obsessed with it, and it's really fun just to sit down on the patio and watch them fight with each other over who can get the most celestial blue sage sap. Another deer grass here, which is finally kind of doing a thing. This one was stunted for some reason. Up here we've got our Monica manzanita, which is continuing to progress. Pretty pleased with that. And we'll need a bigger cage next year for sure. This was the starlight sage. Well, it is the starlight sage. It's mostly done blooming now. And looks good for a starlight. My starlight up at the top of the hill is struggling a little bit, but this one looks great. And right behind it we have a Pozo blue sage, which is invisible because it's directly behind the starlight. You can see it a little bit now though, now that the starlight is sort of faded a little bit. And one more Rudbeckia over here. Black-eyed Susan came out of a seed packet. Turkey mullein has continued to live its best life in this area, except for those ones which have, I think, probably experienced too much water because when this irrigation is on, it sprays that way. This was the one we planted really late in the season, like in July. This is not a starlight. That's a starlight over there. This is a Winifred. Yeah, this is a Winifred Gilman. Not sure how these tags are traveling, but they are. So that's that's it. That's the current status of my 2023 garden, the garden that we planted this year. These all went in, I think, in January of this year, maybe December. I feel like it was January though. And it is now August. It's technically the end of July, but still 7 months in, and this is where we are. Pretty pleased.